Hi, I'm Suresh Venkat. This is FaceTime with Daniel Sieberg. Daniel is the author of a book called The Digital Diet, and he's also the head of media outreach at Google. And to top all of that, he's Emmy nominated 5 times.
That's right, yes.
Right. So Daniel, here's what I can't get. You work at Google, yes, the most connected organization in the world, and you wrote an article on disconnecting yourself from social media. How did you manage this irony?
Well, so the book came out actually before I joined Google, about 2.5 years ago.
They hired you after writing this book?
They did. So it turns out that this idea of consuming our technology in a healthy way affects a lot of us, including people at Google. I love technology. Most of my friends and family does as well. This is just the way it is today. But we need to think about how to consume it in a way that's healthy for us. And so it started with my own need to kind of figure it out for myself. Okay. As a reporter covering technology, I got too immersed in the world of the sort of virtual world versus the real world. And so the book grew out of that. And at Google, they're very supportive of this message too. I mean, they want people to be connected, but not in a way that would ever cause harm to their own life or to those around them. So it's finding that balance. And I don't think I'm perfect, and I don't know anyone that is, but it's being mindful and aware of where technology fits in our lives and doing it effectively.
Daniel, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn.
And Google Plus.
And Google Plus.
Yep.
And I'm a good plug for Google.
Yep.
And Google Plus as well.
Sure.
And I get maybe 50 emails in a day. I don't see this harming me.
Well, that's the thing. It's different with everybody. So much like with the foods that we eat and then the way that our bodies are, we have different metabolisms. Some of us can process foods better than others. Some of us have a good workout routine or something like that. And so we're not as concerned so much about what we eat. Others of us, we feel like if we are overwhelmed by email or too many connections, or we're not connecting with people more effectively, we've lost the way to have a good conversation, or we've forgotten what it's like to pick up the phone, and we're too sort of hidden behind our screens. And if it does become a problem, if your wife is always saying, hey, I need your attention, if your children are running around and you're not giving them the attention that they deserve, then maybe it's just figuring out, all right, I'm going to put my phone down for an hour or so, have some time with my daughter, and then I can get back to my digital world. So it's not like getting rid of it. It's not a disconnect.
Okay.
It's just a way of consuming it that's healthy for you, whatever that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can sense from what you're saying that there is a slightly more ominous, serious side to this internet addiction and online addiction. If somebody is watching this show and they want to look for the early signs that they may be internet addicted and they need to detox, what are those signs?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is a spectrum that we're talking about. There are people like yourself.
Is it a serious problem first?
It absolutely can be.
Could be a serious problem
for sure.
Okay.
And I know people who have gotten so consumed by whatever it is that they were. A lot of people might play an online role-playing game, for example, and spend hours and hours there and not go to their job and not take care of themselves, and so there's a real loss to their own well-being. So that's on the extreme end, where people just kind of lose themselves entirely.
Okay.
On the other end are people who aren't so worried about it, maybe like yourself and others. And then I think many of us are kind of somewhere in the middle, where we have days which we feel overwhelmed and we're just kind of juggling all this stuff, and other days we're okay, So it's all about, again, there are parallels with food in terms of making those choices, but definitely there are certainly cases where it can get quite serious.
What are the signs that you're looking for?
I mean, I think at a basic level, people around you might end up saying something, so it's listening to people. Okay. My wife had to basically have an intervention with me where it was, to the point where I was, in bed with all of my devices, and this does not bode well for a marriage if you never.
Okay.
Are
so that's an easy sign. If your wife is yelling at
your
you,
wife's annoyed, that's pretty clear.
That's a serious sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other one, I think we all have that voice in the back of our minds that reminds us
that you're going too far.
Yeah, that you're going too far.
Okay.
And I think that if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not eating right, if you're not doing the things that you should be doing, then by definition, you've lost yourself to an obsession or an addiction because you're sacrificing those things that you should be doing. So yes, there's a whole sort of spectrum of how bad it can be, but it starts with listening to your own voice.
Your article on disconnection said that you found that you were spending 500 hours a year, which is the equivalent of 20 days of your life online.
Yeah.
20 days doesn't seem like such a long time. Why did that upset you so much?
Well, I think that it was
like
20 full days of, if you imagine sitting in front of a screen that entire time.
Doing nothing else.
It's not so much that it's a bad thing. I think that it's just an awareness, It's like
Okay.
the number of days you might spend in the bathroom. We all have to go to the bathroom, and if you added up all the time that you're in the bathroom, well, that's just how life is. And today, life is spent in front of screens.
I get it.
But what's the quality of time that you're having with those screens? What are you doing exactly? You know, is it meaningful to you? So
Mostly narcissistic.
well, hopefully not mostly, but
Collecting likes and liking other people's. Okay.
Right.
On a more serious note, we're
Yeah.
at the Nasscom seminar, and,
Yeah.
and they're talking about mobility as one of the key applications at work. Now, you were using mobility and you were using social media for personal reasons. It seems you're going to have to use it a lot more at work. Do you see this as a dangerous trend, and people might be spending, instead of 500 hours, maybe 2,000 hours a year online?
you know, I think it's where we're headed. So there's no question that mobility is becoming a part of our personal and our professional life. You know, the phrase BYOD, or bring your own device, people are using the same device for both work and personal life. And it has everything in there for us. You know, it has email, photos, calendar, contacts, all that stuff. You know, so of course there's a tendency for it to kind of consume all of our time and our attention. But it doesn't have to. You know, I think that there are ways to use it effectively, and I talk to business people about what they use it for and why. And I'll just give you a quick example. In a business situation, there was someone who was creating a startup, and they wanted to get some money from a VC, from somebody to invest in the company. And he asked for 1 million francs. This was in Switzerland. And he said, okay, let's go have lunch. Let's talk about it. So they went and had lunch, and during the course of the meal, this guy who was asking for the money got 5 phone calls, and he answered every single one. And the guy who was going to give him the money said, I'm not giving you the money. Forget it.
You don't have the time.
You don't have time for me. You can't give me your attention. All those other things were more important than us talking about your money in this company. So there's a time and a place for all of this stuff, but it can hurt your bottom line and your health if you're not conscious of it.
I have a whole bunch of friends, I'll call them the BlackBerry generation, who got BlackBerries for the first time, and were very excited for about 24 hours. At 24 hours, they realized it was an electronic leash, and they got emails at 2 in the morning, and if they didn't reply by 2:15 in the morning, their bosses got really angry. India is a country where we don't respect the work-life balance too much. Work spills into the weekends, and life spills into the weekday. Do you think it's time for a renegotiation of the boss-employee relationship, of when you send email, when you reply to email?
Absolutely. I think that it's not only time, it's going to be beneficial to
both parties.
Both
actually.
parties. You know, there's the New York Times did a story that last week that looked at that $2,280 is lost to every American worker every year because of lack of productivity through not enough sleep. And having your devices next to the bed or not giving yourself that time to sleep at night is making it worse for them to try to perform the next day. So businesses are losing out, even though they might think that they're trying to squeeze more out of an employee. And the other thing is, it's just, frankly, it's kind of weird to see an email from somebody at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You think, why? Like,
Why?
go to bed. And yes, some people do international business and they have to balance all these things. And my answer is, it's up to you. If you don't want to sleep, or you think that's more important, or you can't deal with your family life and you want to answer that email, that's on you. Because I think increasingly companies, especially, and I have to say at places like Google, respect a work-life balance. They, we are asked questions about how important that is to our lives. And Google's a global company and people are emailing at all times of the day and night. But at some point, you can't lose your own well-being at the expense of just trying to answer some emails. So it's being aware of that balance. Yeah.
Right, Daniel, my final question to you. With the coming of the Internet of Things, or the Thingternet, is it going to make this problem exponentially worse? Am I going to be having long conversations with my fridge and my microwave?
I feel like I already do have long conversations with my fridge.
Yeah, I do, but
why are you empty?
That's mostly because I'm paranoid.
Yeah, right. I think that it's going to change how we, I think increasingly what's happened is the way we interact with technology has become more seamless. It used to be a very finite, obvious experience where we logged on, we logged off. We had big physical computers. Today it's a device that's very portable and mobile. Soon maybe it's wearable, it's Google Glass, it's a watch, whatever it is. And then the Internet of Things, it's even more seamless where you're maybe doing gestures or you're talking
And
to your
it's
appliances.
embedded everywhere, literally.
And it's embedded everywhere, which I think is really exciting. But of course, it also is going to open up lots of questions about, how do we balance that? When do we get that time to kind of disconnect a little bit? How important is that? The brains of young people are changing dramatically as they're consuming this technology. And, that's really cool and kind of neat, and that's just the way life is. But I think it's important to ask these questions, to have these discussions, to think about it, to not lose our humanity if you will, along the way.
All right, on that philosophical note, Daniel Sieberg, thank you for talking to us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.